Hello everybody! Today we're going to be showcasing how to go about building a curbless, barrier-free shower like the one you see before you. The entire point of this shower system is for a seamless transition between the bathroom floor and the shower itself. So before we get started, we have to determine what the shower area itself will be. In this video, we'll be doing a 44-inch wide by a 68-inch deep shower as determined by our clients. Your shower size will likely differ, and that is of no matter, because the steps will be the same. Now, the entire purpose of this is to create both the green area, or the bathroom floor, to be of the same height as the red area, which is the shower pan. And in order to do that, there's a few steps we're going to have to follow. The very first thing that we do is we take a straight edge and a pencil and just mark the perimeter for our shower area. Once we have that determined, we set the skill saw to the depth of the existing subfloor. In our case, that's 5/8 inch thick. If you're in the States, however, you're more likely to see 3/4 inch. Once we have our perimeter cut, we go ahead and add a few more rips along the inside, and that's just going to make it easier to get these pieces out. We'll be able to better get a pry bar underneath that and just pry it up, getting the nails out of the joists. Now you'll notice that section on the right hand side we left. That was because originally there was talks of a shower bench going in. We didn't end up doing that, so we did eventually cut it all the way to that wall. And if you have a cut similar to this where you can't get the skill saw right up to the wall, you can always use a sawzall or an oscillating tool to make that cut. So once we have everything open, we can start sistering up these joists with some 2x4. Now, what we are trying to do here is get the 2x4 at a height so that when we put on our new subfloor, the top of that plywood is going to be completely flush with the joist adjacent to it. And you can see here, we just have a small piece of plywood that we're using as a guide so that we can kind of determine where exactly this 2x4 needs to get mounted so that the two surfaces will be flush with one another. And again, the entire purpose of this is to be able to recess our shower pan as much as possible. Ultimately, we want to avoid building up the shower floor too much because we don't want a huge transition between the area outside of the bathroom to inside of the bathroom. So we just tack in a few screws here, and while we don't do it in this circumstance, it would be a good idea to add in some construction adhesive as well between the two surfaces. That's a practice that we've started doing moving forward. Is it necessary? No, but there's no harm in overbuilding things. After getting the initial construction screws in and ensuring that the height is correct, we go ahead and reinforce it, just adding more screws along the entire 2x4, and then do the exact same thing on the other side here. So something you may have noticed is that with the 2x4s, they're actually a little bit shy of the entire span by about an inch, and this was by design. The purpose of this is so that we can actually slide our new subfloor piece underneath the existing subfloor. That way we can bond the two surfaces together. So the new cutout is 47 inches and we have a 44-inch long space. This is going to allow for an 1.5 inch overhang underneath both ends of the existing subfloor, in which the two will be screwed and glued together. An alternative option to this, of course, is cutting 2 additional 2x4s and running them along the red lines as indicated. That way you have both of your ends of the new subfloor completely secured down. However, I found the method that we'll be using today just to be a little simpler in my opinion. So we take our construction adhesive, apply it to either end of the new subfloor, as well as the tops of the 2x4, which it will be resting on. Once we have that laid out, we can take our piece and just slide it on underneath the one side of the existing subfloor. And then we take this little piece of plywood, get a screw in it, and just hammer this piece on over. This way, we now have the 1.5 inch, as mentioned, underneath each side of the existing subfloor. And that's going to create a real tight bond and keep everything nice and secure. The next few cavities really working out the same as the first one. The type of screws we're using are 1.5 inch flooring screws and spaced out no more than 6 inches apart, although oftentimes you'll find that we're putting even more, as again, overbuilding is always a good idea. Now with this space here, we do have the shower drain here. So just leaving a little bit of a gap right where that trap is. That way, once we put in our new piece of subfloor, we can take a 5-inch hole saw to cut it out. And once we insert the new shower drain, we have some wiggle room so that it's not hitting any of the newly inserted 2x4s. With these next two spaces, you will notice the shower drain ran on the right-hand side there. So just to make this work here, we're going to measure and then notch out the 2x4s just where that drain runs. That way we can still secure this 2x4 at the right height and have enough room to get our new plywood on top of it. Now with this last piece here, the existing cut line is the correct size that we wanted for our shower pan. However, we cut it along top of that joist. This way we can just repeat the exact same thing we've been doing and have a nice and secure subfloor here. And then what we'll actually do is after we recess the first piece of subfloor, we're going to cut a second piece to the size needed to create the exact opening wanted for our shower pan here. A little bit of a time jump here to everything else having been done in this bathroom. We got some walls built, we got some drywall up, and then we're waterproofing our walls. So this is the next step before we can move on to the floor. I like to get my walls done first. And while this isn't a tutorial on how to waterproof your shower, I will make one eventually. But in the meantime, honestly, Schluter themselves have some great videos on this exact topic if you did want to learn that. However, there are many membranes out there, many waterproofing techniques you can use. This is just the one that I like. And for my shower floor, once I have the walls done, I'm going to saturate the subfloor to avoid it pulling any of the moisture out of the thin set itself. And then once I have that done, I'm going to insert my drain here. And again, Schluter has some videos on this topic if you want a more in-depth look to what you do here. And then the shower pan, I'd already dry fit. I cut it to size just using a skill saw. You could also use a knife or anything for that matter. It is just foam after all. And so with my dry fit, I knew it would fit in that little opening we had perfectly. And then I take some thin set and get it and embed it into this space. And you will notice if you look along the edges, our shower pan's actually still higher than our subfloor. This is because the shower pan I am using is 1 1/8 thick. So we've recessed it 5/8, so we still have a 1/2 inch of the shower pan taller than our existing subfloor. So there's a couple more steps we need to do to get this to be truly seamless. The first thing is we're going to build up this subfloor with some plywood. This is 1/4 inch plywood that I'm gluing and screwing down, and I dry fit it first. So I cut out all my pieces, laid them out, and then as you can see, lifting them back up to get the adhesive down and screwing them into place. But even with this new plywood, we're still going to have a 1/4 inch to make up for. And the reason why I left that amount is because I'm going to be doing a heated floor in here. So in order to install that, I'm going to be using what is called Ditra heat. It is this orange waterproof uncoupling membrane that goes on the floors, and it is a 1/4 inch thick. So after installing this, the top of the orange Ditra heat will be at the exact same height as my shower pan. Now, if you're not doing heated floors, there is just regular Ditra or Ditra XL. So Ditra comes in 1/8 thick, or Ditra XL coming in 1/4 inch of thickness. And you just want to pick the one that's the appropriate size for you. And with the exact one I'm using here, it is a peel and stick, which makes for an easy installation. And the added bonus, of course, to this is that it's waterproof. And that's really important when we're talking about building a curbless shower, because we are going to want to waterproof not only the shower pan, but the area outside of the shower as well. The reason for this is that when we think about a traditional curbed shower, is that over time, water is going to find its way beneath your tiles. When this happens in a curb shower, it cannot escape the curbed enclosure. However, with the style we're using here, the water has a chance to get outside of it. And in the event that that does occur, we want to make sure that everything's waterproof. So I take this Curdy band and apply it to all of my corners, as well as the transition between the shower pan itself and the Ditra heat. On top of this, I'm going to extend it along the corners of the walls outside of the direct waterproofing that you can see going all the way up. And also the cut sections of the Ditra heat where matte meets matte, I'm going to apply some banding over that as well. And all of this just being used with a 1/4 inch by 3/16 V-notch trowel with Schluter's All Set. When we talk about waterproofing, There is a genuine difference between Allset and other mortars that I find. So I do spend the extra money when it comes to this stuff because waterproofing is a very important step. This is not the time or place to save. The next day, I go ahead and start installing my floor tiles. And the reason why I'm doing the floor before the shower pan is that with the floor, you can see we're using these nice rectified 24-inch long tiles, whereas in the shower pan, we're going to be using a mosaic. So by doing the floor first, I can establish some very straight and square lines that's going to make installing my shower floor a whole lot easier. Now, you don't have to do it in this order, but I find that because of the tile types that I'm using, this is going to create the easiest installation. One extra method of waterproofing I just want to mention here is since we have this perimeter established, you can see the red line there. What I like to do is I also take just some 100% silicone and run a thick bead of it underneath the large format tile where it meets the Curdy membrane. That way, over time, if we think about water wicking underneath our shower floor tiles, it can't escape the pan. Even though everything's sloped and waterproofed, it's just an extra little benefit. So you can see I had those tiles set up. I went and put some painter's tape to protect them along these edges. And this way I can go ahead and start cutting these hexagon mosaic tiles and just have some nice straight cuts and start by butting them into that corner of the floor tile. The other two lines, which are next to the waterproofing, will be covered by the wall tiles. So we can leave a little bit of a gap for expansion and then also not have to worry about that side being as perfect as the visible side on the left. And of course, after that comes the grouting. So this is just Laticrete's Permacolor Grout in Silver Shadow, nice light gray. I always try to avoid white as it will discolor over time. And we get that in there, let that set up, and then move on to the siliconing. And this is just a color matched silicone that goes into any change of plane. That is all of your corners. And I like to personally just apply a nice thick bead along the corner. And then I take some soapy water, just spray it down. The reason behind this is the silicone won't stick to the soapy areas, so it keeps it clean. And then I just take a popsicle stick, go along those beads to round them out, make them nice and tight and as clean as possible. Because this is a natural stone mosaic, I take a sealer, very important to seal your natural stone. And if your grout doesn't have a built-in sealer, you would need to seal that as well. But the sealer here has a built-in glossy finish to it. So I actually applied 3 coats of this, just very thin coats, wiping it off. And then eventually we were able to get the mosaic to be glossy, kind of to match the rest of the floor tiles. And there you have it, a completely seamless, barrier-free shower. We had our glass guys come in after this and they are able to manufacture custom glass to be installed directly on top of the very edge of the large format tile to further separate what is the shower area from the rest of the bathroom. And I think it turned out really good. So hopefully you enjoyed this video and were able to learn something from it. I do plan on making more of these how-to style videos, so if there's something you felt that I could improve upon, please let me know, as my ultimate goal here is to provide the best education possible on these subjects. And if there's anything else in particular that you want to see or learn how to do, please just let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a great day. Sorry, just one more thing I thought I would mention, and that's the transition from bathroom floor to the rest of the house flooring. And in our case here, don't mind the scuffed up areas that was existing, but more importantly is that transition piece. So because the flooring was not being redone here, we did have to kind of custom make this piece out of oak. We just gave it a ramp and then applied it over the existing flooring to bridge that gap. Unfortunately, in this house specifically, their flooring was only 3/8 inch thick, which is really, really thin. And our new bathroom floor height is at 1 inch. So if you think about it, we had a 1/4 inch of plywood, a 1/4 inch of Ditra heat, our floor tiles 3/8 inch thick, and then some thin set that's about 1 inch finished height. So to bridge the gap from 3/8 inch to 1 inch, you have to do something a little bit drastic. In most situations though, you'll only have about 1/4 inch bridge. Most hardwood flooring is about 3/4 inch thick. So if your tile's at 1 inch thick, you only have a 1/4 inch to transition between. Now, in an ideal world, you'd be doing your bathroom first and then any flooring after the fact. And that way you can get a really nice transition like the one we have here. So in this bathroom, they had their flooring done after the fact. And then the flooring installer was able to take this piece of hardwood and give it a slight incline. That way it has a just very subtle ramp up to bridge the gap of the two heights. And this is a downside to a curbless shower, is you might run into this issue. There are ways around it. They make really thin shower pans, which would help to avoid this. And if your existing subfloor is 3/4 inch instead of 5/8 like ours, that's going to help as well. But just something to be mindful of.